Welcome to the RevOps Loop podcast with Maarten and Stjepan, brought to you by Digital Reach and the nonprofit tech shop. Get ready to learn about revenue operations, HubSpot, and beer.
Hey guys, so episode 2 today, and our question or topic of the day: how do you operationalize handoffs between marketing, sales, and service in HubSpot? So this is definitely a very common theme, a lot of opinions, a lot of angles, a lot of tools, tips, and tricks around this. So interested in getting into this topic and really digging into it a little bit. So again, the general theme, Stjepan and I, let's chat through some of the examples that we come across in our day-to-day. Let's look at some of the do's and don'ts, tips and tricks that we'd recommend when it comes to operationalizing these handoffs. And then we'll zone in on some specific tools, features, concepts that will essentially rate as being overhyped, underused, on value, right? Trying to make this as specific as possible. So yeah, let's get right into it. Stjepan, you want to kick us off when you're thinking handoffs and operationalizing handoffs specifically between teams and departments? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind for me is usually the cross-team alignment workshops. And when I'm thinking about that, I wanted to address the human element first. Because, like, honestly, you can have the perfect CRM setup, the perfect HubSpot configuration, but if your teams are like speaking different languages, you will have handoff disasters. So, I'm a big believer that like monthly cross-team alignment workshops, depending how the teams are structured, the size, but I think a monthly one should be maybe mandatory. And I don't mean like those boring meetings like let's review our processes meetings that everybody is like, oh, I don't want to go to that one. I'm talking about actually working sessions where marketing teams, sales, and service, you sit together and you hash out what success looks for each handoff, starting from the marketing side, from the sales side, from the service side. So it's, I think the key for that meeting to be successful is to establish shared definitions. And like, what does qualified actually mean for anyone that's on that meeting? What's the difference between interested and ready to buy? Can we somehow use data to understand when somebody's interested, when they're ready to buy, so everybody's aligned and we know what's happening in the journey. So I literally see in teams when I did enablement trainings probably like a week ago, they were like arguing, discussing for 20 minutes about whether somebody should be a lead, a relationship owner, or something. When, for example, somebody downloads a white paper, does that mean that they are sales ready? And they didn't know how to approach it. So using a monthly workshop, I think is good. But like, want to see your point on that.
No, okay, I like that, and I like that we're essentially kind of working backwards, like starting from cross-team alignment workshops. That's usually something that, and you want to have this set up from the get-go, right? But it's to address kind of issues and look for improvements in the handoffs. And then I think operationally there are some things that we can touch on that in a little bit, that are like actual things you can implement to make handoffs more effective and efficient. But I don't think it's a bad idea to kind of zoom out and kind of start from the end and say, hey, when there's existing handoffs in place, how do you make sure that feedback comes across from different teams? So these workshops, one thing I would add to that as well. So I had that jotted down as a note as well, sort of structured feedback loops, and workshops are definitely a part of that. One thing that I've seen I really liked, this was actually like a client who had this already set up. I just thought it was a cool idea, where they essentially have a grading system that teams were using when accounts got handed off to them. So both sales and their customer success team, when a new lead came in, so from marketing or from sales, right, they would essentially be prompted to very quickly grade the handoff. Say, did they have all the information they need? If I remember correctly, it was a scale, sort of 1 to 10. They could add in a property. Again, it doesn't take them more than 5 seconds. This was a very fast-moving industry as well, so they were getting multiple leads a day. And they were essentially just looking, hey, do I have all the information that I have? I need a decision maker timeline, right? And whatever information was relevant for them. Was that there? Yes, no, they would grade it. And all of that would feed back into then a report, an overview, which when you're having these cross-team workshops is a great resource to pull up, right? And say, hey, last month, our handoff from sales to customer success, we had a bit of a drop-off, and these were the 3 issues that were reported the most. It just right away gives you a framework for your discussion, right? Because, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, often these discussions can kind of get out of hand a little bit, where everyone just starts complaining about lead quality or information that they did or did not get, then there's sort of a lot of finger pointing. And if you at least can start from kind of a scoring framework or something along those lines, it just kind of helps guide that conversation. So I thought that was a neat add-on to have, to actually grade and kind of score handoffs internally, and then use this in these in these feedback sessions that they then had as well. I don't know if is that something you've seen before as well?
Yeah, and I'm a big believer that like doing the workshops, talking to each other monthly, and then setting those scores and optimizing those scores is something that will help.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that like people are using scoring tools across CRMs and HubSpot to surface what they need at the right moment, because you can do that right now. But I think like when you have after the workshop, after maybe the scoring system in place, you should have some automated notification systems, like something that will help you track and catch those messy accounts, messy journeys that your teams have. And I would just scratch the surface and say like one that I do think should be always implemented is just like setting a HubSpot workflow and an automation to notify or ping the right people when handoffs happen. So just defining what's the line when the handoff happens, what's the score when the handoff needs to happen, and then having something to ping the right individual or the right team. And then set up some escalation triggers for when handoffs get stuck. So I'm thinking, for example, a simple setup, it will be, let's say a lead moves from marketing to sales. Sales should get notified immediately, but here's my kicker. If that lead sits more than 24 hours, 12 hours untouched, so there's no sequence enrollment, there's no phone calls, it will then ping the sales manager. So that's like the escalation. If it's more, if it's 2 days, 3 days, and there's no movement,
right,
I will escalate it probably to VP if that's the process, or maybe involve somebody else that needs to know about that. So, and then why this automation? Because I think nothing will motivate faster follow-ups like boss asking you why a hot lead, and we can say it's like collecting dust. So like the marketing did their part, they generated a lead, you have a scoring system, you know they're hot, they're ready to talk to somebody, they need to be addressed, and then you don't have anything to notify the right people. And even if you have that, let's say it goes to Slack to the right sales rep, but then it sits there for 48 hours. So I think then it's a very hard conversation to have with that lead, and you need to like again nurture them and get them to that level. So I think having some escalation safety nets where like if it's not addressed, escalate to a manager or maybe show to the larger team, so that somebody that maybe wants to do more selling can say, okay, next time route it to me instead. So I'm ready. I'm in my jam.
So
yeah.
And I think so that all feeds. So I guess again, we started from how do you make these how do you make the feedback more usable? How do you make sure that teams are, and when they're discussing handoffs and what they need and they don't need, we can structure this somewhat and give that discussion some guidance. And so we talk about like workshops that we could set up, sort of rating handoffs, scoring them, and then when you add in these notifications, part of it is also just you touched on it, right? The increased visibility, right? So on the one hand, sure, notifying different folks within the organization if handoffs are stagnant could be a way to put pressure if that's what's needed in an organization. Great, ideally that's not the case. But even if it's just for visibility, right? Having a channel where you see all of the handoffs that are coming in from marketing to sales, from sales to customer success, just so everyone can see them. Again, it just makes those, when you go into those feedback workshops and discussions, it makes it so that everyone's more or less on the same page. Like, hey, we've all seen the handoffs come in. We've all seen the notifications. We all see the scores that people are giving to these handoffs, etc. It's all out there, and there's less of this, again, this kind of finger pointing, this kind of very subjective discussions, which you often have when it comes to handoffs. So I do think these notifications, apart from putting pressure, it's also just to have more visibility on what is moving in an organization. So that then when you do discuss them, these discussions can be a lot more meaningful. What I would add to that, and I guess getting a bit more into the nitty-gritty of actual handoffs, right? So not just the feedback loops and the notifications around it, but the actual providing of handed over accounts. Sorry about that. The data transfer side of things. So like, what information are you actually sending along with that, right? And this is where I think this is an interesting topic to go into, because here I feel you really see two completely different scenarios play out quite often. There's the sort of black hole scenario where, you know, accounts get handed off from marketing to sales. There's very little information on there, right? It's just, hey, they clicked something, here they are, follow up please. Same thing happens with from sales to customer success at times as well, where there might be an initial discussion, accounts get handed off, and there's very little information there. You know, the other team goes in blind, and then, you know, obviously that's a breeding ground for issues and discussions, and then improper follow-up for leads as well. The other one, and I feel like you might even see this more often nowadays, is oversharing, where it's just, I'm handing off an account to you, and I'm just going to drop every and all things that this account has ever done in one massive doc, and now it's your responsibility to figure it out, because at least I know you can't point your finger at me and say I didn't give you information. No, I'm giving you everything. That's not efficient, obviously, right? It kind of muddies the water. People don't really know what they have to look for, and that's one that I feel like you see quite often. So that's where I think it's key on definitely avoiding the black hole scenario. I feel like most organizations are very aware of that. That's kind of the first thing that will come up in these feedback workshops, right? Where say, hey, you're giving me accounts and I don't know anything about them. You need to tell me about them. I feel like it's very common, and people are just quite aware of that. The other, less so, where it's like, hey, you're giving me all this information. I don't know what to do with it, right? It's a little bit all over the place. It's not structured. So
where do I even start with that? Yeah. Yeah,
and how do you go about doing that? I mean, I have some ideas, but like, yeah, what do you think? So when you're in that scenario, I have a bunch of accounts. I have a ton of information. I'm handing them off to you. How do I go about making it clear so that when you get this account, you're getting the information you need and not all the noise that's irrelevant? What are like some things that you would use or things that you've seen to help in those situations?
Yeah, I really love that you touched that point, especially the one like, okay, let me just grab all the links that we have on our shared folders for this client or a customer or maybe a prospect, and let's just dump that in Slack or Teams or something, and like I did my part, my job, maybe just like do something. So I would say like what I'm seeing, you just painted the perfect picture. Is like, how do we what people are doing. So, and I would want to start with like what people are not doing. And most of our clients and people we talk to have access to HubSpot playbooks, and they're not utilizing any of those like playbooks. And when I ask them like how are you using them, like we have maybe 2-3 questions, but like, and I'm not talking about like the 50-page documents that sit in the shared drive, like checklists that have a lot of people that need to be involved. I'm thinking about like, why don't you create a role specific Handoff checklist for some of the common scenarios that your teams can use to identify the crucial data when handoff needs to happen from marketing to sales, from sales to service, and maybe also back from service to sales when there's like potential upgrades or upsells or downgrades. So I'm thinking, let's say marketing to sales playbook. Simple question. Did you identify the decision maker? Yes or no? Who is it? Do you know their timeline? What's their biggest pain point? Like you talk to them, like what's their biggest pain point? We want to create content around that because they're our ICP. We need to know what's the pain point, why they are coming to us. For sales to service, that can be easy as like what promises were made. Like what did the sales promise that we need to know? And also like the team that's like doing or delivering the service, they need to know what's the promise. So like everybody is accountable, and what's their expected go live date. It's a project specific, but like what's the date they would like to go live, so we know, do we have time to maybe focus on one thing, or we just need to go bam 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 and do the thing that we said. Who is the internal champion, who we will talk to when things are messy, roughy or something. But like that's okay, simple questions. But I think the secret sauce that you also, and we talked about that I think when we were at San Francisco or something, like what are some red flags? Like train the teams to document the warning signs, and those are like did the prospect dodge our budgeting questions? Do they want to go live next week but haven't done any of their data clean so we can import the data easy? Do they even know what they purchased, like what HubSpot hubs they have and what we can do for them? So, and I think that's the thing that helps the most. It doesn't need to be a HubSpot playbook, but if you have access to it, and most people do, maybe just use that alongside with the data points that you mentioned, and then the automations, and then have that and review it monthly. But like, what are you thinking about for that process, and like how can what are you seeing and in those lines?
I think it kind of complements it quite well. So what you're saying on these playbooks, right, is that it would essentially set up rules and criteria for different team members to pass information sort of manually, right, through as they're passing deals through. Like, hey, what do you know about what this account that you're passing through? Fill this information here. This could be set up through guiding questions. But essentially that would be gathering that input and essentially getting teams to provide that input before they're passing information through. What I think accompanies that quite well is perhaps, and this is what I'm really liking to use lately, are these summarized data fields that kind of look at all of the, essentially just reads all the email history, call transcripts, and meeting recordings that have taken place, and adds that into that handover process somehow, essentially taking away some of the responsibility from the person actually handing over the account and helping them, right, by providing already pre-summarized data. And we can kind of dive into, I guess, the tool and feature section of it, because I think this goes directly into it. When you talk about these AI summaries that would do exactly that, take recordings, take transcripts, and summarize this in a way, I would say maybe up until a year ago, I would even say that was overrated, overhyped a little bit, where like, it kind of does what it's supposed to do, but it might miss some important things. And I would never purely rely on it. I would always use it as a starting point and then dig into it more. Now, I'm not saying you should always purely rely on it, but they've gotten a lot better and they've gotten a lot more customizable in the sense that you can set up agents, right, that would summarize all of the historic information that's been discussed, but then formulate that in a way that's relevant for you, right? If I'm sales and I'm receiving accounts from marketing, I wanna know which specific pain points may or may not have come up in different discussions, right? And whoever's handing off this account to me may have forgotten about it, right? So if they're following the playbook and they're passing this through, this might get overlooked. Where actually, maybe one of the initial calls, there was one specific thing mentioned about a key decision maker that's leaving and might be replaced by the end of Q3 or whatever it may be. That's the whoever was chatting with the account at the time may have overlooked that. That's very crucial information for me. And so this is where, if you have these AI summary bots, agents set up that are tailored to the information that you are looking for and can kind of pick that out of the different communications that have happened, that's where I've seen some really cool use cases where then service, sales, marketing, all would get different summaries based on what's relevant for them. And they're quite deep, like the understanding is quite deep in that you can rely on them pretty accurately. You can even ask them to add links to references, right? Where you say like, hey, it's mentioning that there was a decision maker who left. When did this come up? Oh, this was X months ago. Here's a link to the original email. Great, let me check that. And so I've seen some great summaries come through that way, which saves everybody just a lot of time. So that's my first one that I'm almost deploying everywhere I can at the moment, is using these AI summaries, right, to provide information to. In HubSpot specifically, right? Obviously, we work a lot out of HubSpot with these smart properties. They're great for that, right? And so we would have essentially a sales summary, service summary, a marketing summary. You can create as many properties as you want, and they would do exactly that. They would go ahead and get the information that's relevant for whoever is judging the account, which would be different from team to team. So that's my first one that I would say that is at the moment, I don't know if it's undervalued or on value, but it's a great feature. I love using it, and I think it's made a lot of progress in the last year or two, for sure. Have you used it?
Yes, and I just like yesterday trained the team how they can use HubSpot agents. So like I did the customer research agent where we just like entered the domain and I showed them that it will work in the background, and then all of a sudden you have that like central view around the company. It scrapes the news around it, what they're specialized. It like opens a couple of like services that they're delivering, products, who's the owner, like everything around that company, and then you can just quickly click copy link, share it somewhere. We decided they will do that. Somebody from the team will do that, and then it will just add a link to it in a note next to the prospect or the company, and they will just leave it as a note. Please look this before you start engaging, because maybe there's some specific news that their agents scraped, and they can use that to send their first email or start a conversation on LinkedIn or somewhere else. So I really think that are good.
Yeah. Are you adding this in playbooks essentially then now as well? Like would that become part of it?
That's a good question. Like I didn't think about that, but like adding it to a playbook could be a pretty good like upgrade. So
imagine, then you're combining, I guess, best of both worlds, right? Like where it's find all the information that you may or may not have skipped, and then also having that manual input, like, hey, how would you, before handing this over, fill out these 3-4 questions based on your kind of subjective opinion and view. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot there for sure. Any other like features, tools that are go-tos for you when it comes to any kind of handoff processes that you're setting up for clients?
Yeah, so I would like, I think like I talked about like playbooks being used for internal teams. So I just want to continue that topic because I think there are tools at disposal that maybe you don't necessarily need to only use for like outreaches, like sequences. So I would say like HubSpot sequences, like they are a sales one-on-one tool, but I
Yeah.
also like to think them about like setting up a sequence when a handoff happens. So like
Okay.
you auto enroll somebody based like you auto enroll them into a sequence when the handoff happens or a certain criteria is met, and then the sequence goes directly to the maybe to prospect, maybe to your customers, but also can go directly to somebody from the team. And the sequence can just be like, hey, just wanted to make sure you got my earlier message. Here's what we discussed with marketing. Here are your next steps. This is what
Okay.
sales promised, and just like outline a sentence there. And I think it helps with timing. But then also, if somebody misses that, we can run it back in 3 days, or we can do like a call that needs to happen from the customer success team if the sequence is not replied or a meeting or something is not booked, because that's the purpose of sequence for those who maybe are new to HubSpot tools. And like
Mhm.
just want to share a quick example. So we had a client and they had a dedicated 3-person team for just calling their customers and asking how well they are, like are they satisfied with the service provided so far. So they used a spreadsheet, they had like a little notebook, and they were just drowning because they had a lot of customers to call. So we just implemented a simple thing, and that was like some scoring. If there's an email, and if there's like a milestone delivered in a project or or a service there, they just get notified with this, and the sequence triggers, and it just goes to the customer and says, "Hi, how far are you satisfied?" If they don't, then they don't reply, they have a 4-day window, and then they have a task to call them. So make it more personal. If they reply, and if it's a reply that's not good, they will immediately call them. So that was something that was like very easy setup, but help a lot with the handoffs, but also client satisfaction, potential down the
Right.
line, referrals, or some cases.
And so, right, okay. And so sequence is not, again, like you said, not just client facing, right? But internal sequence as well. Like if there's multiple steps to a handover, multiple pieces of information to be shared at different times, like setting this up in automated sequences purely for the internal handover process, which indeed I don't think, I've seen it maybe once or twice. I don't think it's very common practice to set up like automated sequences for handover processes. It's usually more of a, a one moment kind of thing. Here's the handover done. So I do like that idea. Plus, it would also then allow kind of like some, I guess, including a pre-handover steps as well, like something that I know I'm handing off to you in a week or two, right? Most likely. If interesting things are happening, right, that you're already being pre-fed this information, just as FYI, right, you're being kept up to date on, hey, Martin's having a second demo call with this prospect, and he first discussed this, and now they're going to be discussing that, so that when that account actually does come to you, right, you have already some information beforehand. So this is where, again, maybe these sequences, they kind of help feed the information in steps at the right time, as opposed to just, on the day, here's a new account, here's all the information, and help spread that out a bit more. So I do like that, yeah.
Yeah. What are some tools that you are like are using or
Apart-
you recommend? using?
Yeah, so apart from like the AI summaries and things like that, I guess the last thing I would add to that is and it all ties into it, right? But sort of the lead scoring features, lead scoring tools, and I guess similar to sequences in that they're typically used for one thing and one thing only. Sequences usually client facing, multiple multiple touch points, communication flows. Lead scoring is typically used to surface and identify high potential leads kind of earlier on in the funnel, right? And this is where you can kind of flip the script, same as with sequences where, hey, you start using sequences for internal handover processes. Lead scoring can definitely be used for scoring and judging, I guess, the handoff criteria that go into it, right? And so a lead may be way down in the funnel, you have 3 demos, right? You had your initial lead scoring used to surface this lead. Sales reached out, we had a lot done. We have then a different scoring model set up that tells us how service would look at this lead when this lead comes into them. That would be a different set of criteria. So that would not be about the job titles and the decision makers per se, but that would be more about are there intent signals that indicate this would be a potential short-term or long-term client? What are some upsell opportunities that may have been flagged in the initial stages that would be more relevant for service? And so a lead could come in with a certain scoring criteria for sales. To simplify it, they'd have a pretty high scoring because the need is very high. We're in touch with the decision maker right away. It's a great job title. We booked the demo right away. Okay, everything is a fit. Score is high because that's what sales needs to know when to reach out and who to reach out to. For service, perhaps the score would be a lot lower because it turns out, based on what's been discussed, they're really looking for a short-term fixed solution, not necessarily a long-term partnership, or whatever other criteria there might be. So this is where, again, just look at some of the existing tools and things that you're using, like sequences, like lead scoring, and think a little bit outside the box. Like, hey, what other scenarios would it make sense to sequence a communication flow or score a lead, right? And I think that's one where I've seen it used kind of outside of the box, and I do like it. Again, it has to be done cleanly, make sure everyone needs to know what scores they're looking at. Things can get confusing very quick. But if this is set up cleanly, yeah, it's a great tool that's already there for the taking, and can just help multiple teams, not just the team it's typically associated with, right?
Yeah. So I agree. So just to wrap up, I think we can probably wrap up what we were talking about, like the tools and handoff processes and everything. I think we covered a lot, but I would just say that usually handoffs are just good processes that often die, and the way that they die is because there's no right combination of human alignment that we covered in monthly workshops, maybe some checklist, smart automation and data transfer that you covered. Don't dump everything on the next guy in line and expect that this is a smooth handoff. Just so everybody can browse a folder and get their links together. Then proper measurement is what are you measuring on? Those are the scores that we covered. Using the new features like AI summaries and agents to make sure that nothing is missed. So it can go and scrape everything and you save time while they're doing that. And then also feeding that to a playbook is an idea that probably we will talk more offline, how we can do that. Maybe just a little tool that can help our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about HubSpot tools beyond the obvious use cases. I think that's this episode mantra is how a sequence tool can be used differently, how a playbook tool can be used differently. The lead scoring, that's now powerful. You can do a lot of whatever triggers, engagements, measure it, but maybe can be a account health scoring system that you built for yourself.
Yep.
So before we go and dive into the fun part in rating a beer, do you have anything to add?
No, I just thinking out loud. I feel like that could be a topic in and of itself. of HubSpot features used in different ways than they're intended to. Because I know, especially you and I both, especially when we're working in on nonprofit projects, and HubSpot is still very much set up for for-profit organizations with lead funnels and lead pipelines. And so I think we both have a lot of experience in taking a lot of these existing features and tools and objects and kind of twisting them around to fit organizations that don't fit the norm. So just kind of as we were talking through that, maybe that's an idea for a different episode where we just go through a bunch of use cases, talking through ways that HubSpot intends you to use features and other ways you could be looking at them. So, but yeah, other than that, I think you summarized it all. So to your point, let's get to the fun part, beer review. You want to kick us off? I know which one you're choosing.
Yeah, we don't have a beer. I didn't grab it, but the funny part is I tasted that beer when we were in San Francisco at Inbound 25. We were at the sports bar watching a opening match for NFL, and I was just given a beer when we went into the sports bar. It was called Bunny with a Chainsaw. So if you think about it, it's the name. I was like, what is this? But it's a pretty alcohol heavy beer. I think it's 8.2 or something. It's a hazy IPA, a little bit tropical, fruity notes. But I would say it's not so heavy as it will seem for the ABV percentage. I had a couple and it was pretty great, and watching a game having that sort of beer is always something that I would repeat. But yeah, if you haven't tried it, I think it's by I don't remember, the Paperback Brewing Company or something. It's pretty good. So what's the beer that you want to rate this episode?
Yeah, first of all, I agree with it. It's a good one. I know I had a couple, and I'm usually not an IPA guy myself, but those are pretty smooth. No, the one I chose, also a heavy beer. It's called the Westvleteren 12. So it's a Belgian beer. So it's a hometown beer, not a hometown beer, home country beer, I should say. But what makes it so first of all, it's just one of the best beers in the world. It's won several awards, and it's brewed by this abbey, this monastery, right? By monks who are creating this in very limited quantities. They're essentially brewing this to sustain, with the profits they're sustaining the abbey, the monastery there that they're running. It's very cool. It's very traditional in that it's hard to get it. Up until a few years ago, you still had to, you had to call them, make an appointment, pick it up. You could buy one or two crates. It was a typical gift you'd get for a Father's Day gift or something along those lines, because it was just sort of a nice to have. They came in these very cool crates as well. So it's a very famous, very great beer that's hard to get, which kind of adds to the mystique. That obviously helps. And just in terms of taste, it's really good. It's really rich. It's really dark. It's very complex, but it's heavy. It's around 10 and a half degrees, something like that. So yeah, more than anything, it's something you want to have in the house. You want to rarely have one or two, and kind of spread it out until you're able to get your next batch. Which typically back in Belgium, families would have one or two of these crates a year, if that. If they were lucky enough to get them, and then you have to drive all the way to the monastery to go pick it up. So it was a whole fun experience. So yeah, that's the beer. If you're ever lucky enough to get one, definitely try it out. But yeah, I think being able to get your hands on it is sort of part of the fun. It has gotten easier in recent years. I know that you can order it online now as well.
I think when I was traveling in Ireland, I think I in one of the specialized beer shops, I did buy one or two. I just Googled it real quickly while you were talking just to see the image, and I do remember having that one. Maybe I just need to go to my Untapped account, but I do remember it's heavy. It's something let's say a Trappist porter style beer, and I think it's like a wine. It's better for me. It's better than wine, but it's I think two will probably be more than enough to have of those, but I didn't know the whole story regarding you need to phone call and order
Used to be,
and
yeah.
like pick up a cask. We had something similar here in my hometown of Karlovac. There was monks creating a beer. It was a ale, and it went so fast when they opened it that they like the next year decided they will not do any selling, and I'm sad because of that, because it was one of the pretty good beers that I tasted. So
There you go.
thanks for sharing the story behind it, and like dad, I don't know, giving it to your dad or giving it to your friends. I think that's really nice because it has a story.
Exactly. It's a fun one just for that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Stjepan.
Okay.
Well, thanks for that. I feel like also we set up some interesting future topics as well, so we can dive into those more. But then we'll round it up for today. That was an interesting one. So how we operationalize handoffs between marketing, sales, and service. Talk through some of the general strategies behind it, some quick tips and tricks, and yeah, hope that was interesting. Have a good one,
Thank you.
Stjepan.
See you.
We'll chat soon. See ya.
Bye.